So rules for live, you should mute yourself as soon as you come on, just so that we don't hear anything in the background, or you might be playing video games when the Google Meet starts or something and start swearing because you got killed in Fortnite. Like, it's not a big deal, but appreciate it if you mute yourself, especially as we work through the lecture. Like, there will be times where I ask questions. Just so you know, as far as questions go, so yeah, you can always go and ask a question on the right-hand side when you do Q&A. The second one is remain muted unless you have a question. You can either ask a question using Q&A in the Google Meet or raise your hand and I will see it on the screen. That is to physically raise your hand. In first period, somebody raised their hand and then they got mad that I never answered the question. I just want to address that problem. If you want me to see your hand raised, you have to have your camera turned on. There's literally no way for me to know that your hand was ever raised to begin with. So yeah, in order to raise your hand and ask a question, you're going to have your camera turned on. Third is be attentive. You should treat it like you do in class. You don't want to be playing a video game or on your phone. Oh wait, you guys are on your phones in class. Never mind. But you don't want to have it so that you're on your phone or distracted during the lesson. You're going to have to take notes like you used to, going back to the old school. So you're going to be taking notes from home. I'll try to build in enough time for you to take notes. If you need me to wait, just make sure to unmute yourself and say, can you wait a minute before you move on? Or I'll usually ask before I move on. Last one is come on time. They've been telling us that we have to start our Google Meets at exactly the time listed, whether you're here or not. So if I was to get on and say at noon and nobody else was on, excuse me, Rona, and no one else was on, they would want us to start teaching to ourselves, I guess, even though there's no one here. Anybody have any questions on the rules? I'm dying over here. That's all right. We're just going over some of the rules. Number 4 is come on time. Today we are starting 2.5 inequalities. And an inequality is just when you have a less than or a greater than symbol. It could also be less than or equal to, greater than or equal to as well. A compound inequality is when you would have something like B is less than C, which is less than D. And that tells us that B is less than C, and it's simultaneously, or at the same time, C is less than D. So with this interval notation, interval is just two numbers that is a set of all numbers lying between two fixed numbers. C and D are real numbers, with C less than D. The bracket C and D is all real numbers, X, such that C is less than or equal to X, less than or equal to D. It makes this a closed interval because of the equal signs underneath. And you can tell that it's going to be an equal sign because of the brackets. Am I good to move down a little bit? Next would be parenthesis C, comma D, and then another parenthesis. That is the set of all real numbers X, such that C is less than X is less than D. This is an open interval. So it means it could be any number X between C and D, but it can't be C and D. We know it's an open interval and that those are just less than signs because of the parentheses. Moving on, if we have bracket C, D, and parenthesis, that's a set of all real numbers x such that C is less than or equal to x, is less than D, and this is a half open interval. In this case, x could be C, but not D. And I can tell where my less than or equal sign goes in this one because of the bracket on the C side. So because this is a bracket at C, I know my less than or equal to is going to go on this side. If this was a bracket on D instead, that would be the opposite. We would have CD with a parenthesis and then a bracket, which would be the set of all real numbers such that C is less than X is less than or equal to D, and that's also a half open interval. In this case, X could be D, but not C. If we're looking at this interval, say that this is 1, it's less than X is less than 2. Then X could be any value between 1 and 2, like 1.5, 1.6, 1.8, 1.9, but it can never go all the way up to 2. Likewise, it could be 1.1, but it'll never be 1. So it can be any number in between these two that doesn't include those. If I look at this one using the same numbers, this would include 1. So X could be 1, it could be equal to 1, but it can't be equal to 2, just because of the less than sign. Same thing down here. It would be possible for X to be 2, but not 1. Does that make sense? Yep. The half line extending to the right or left of B is also called an interval. Let me show you what I mean by that. It's if we were looking at a number line, so if I'm looking at a number line, oops, and I have a point here, say B, then I don't have to have an end to it. Like if I'm looking at X greater than B, then I don't have to have an end to it. It's looking at all the numbers that are greater than B. So it'd be everything going to the right. So for that half line that's to the right of B, or when X would be any number greater than or equal to B, this is what it would look like. I would have a bracket B, and then going to infinity and beyond. Couldn't help myself. So because it's going to infinity, that's not a specific number. It's just saying that it's any number that's bigger than b. So this interval would be b to infinity, and then a parenthesis around the infinity. And that's all the real numbers x, such that x is greater than or equal to b. Or if I've said all the real numbers x, this is just an example, greater than 5. So because there's no restrictions on the top side, it could be 10,000, 150,000, 150 million. It goes on forever. Additionally, if I didn't want it to equal 5, then I would just do a parenthesis on the b side, where it would just be x is greater than 5. Only difference there is that it does not include the number 5. Everyone good with that top part? Looks cool. Okay. Yep. If we're looking at the half line to the left of b, that's just going to be going in the opposite direction of what we had just done up there. So I can put b on a number line, and the half line to the left would be everything going in this direction. That would be going from negative infinity up to b. Because this is a bracket, we would know it's a less than or equal to. So this would be all the numbers that are smaller than b. Like x less than or equal to 5. That would include everything that's below 5. So -4, -17, -25, all of that would be included there. Same thing for the next one. It'd be negative infinity up to b with a parenthesis, and that would just mean that it was all the numbers just less than b. So every number that's just less than 5.